I guess because I was hearing background noises, I muted everyone, including myself. This is the 9th annual edition of the Socially Relevant Film Festival, New York, and we bring a selection of 64 films from 39 countries to you this year. The 64 films are a mixture of shorts, documentaries, narrative features, and they touch upon a huge selection, a wide, broad range of topics, socially relevant topics, dealing with social issues. We never profess to offer solutions to these social problems that we talk about, because who are we anyway to come up with solutions? But we always try to keep a positive attitude, an open channel, a light at the end of the tunnel, so to say, so that we don't just go and jump off of a cliff because the world has become such a terrible place. So we have a bunch of filmmakers today, some of whom are joining us from down under Australia, like 4:30 a.m., New Zealand, 7:30 a.m., and we have people from Italy. So we're going to have a very nice chat and talk to all of these wonderful filmmakers who are bringing you fascinating films. Personally, I have founded this festival 9 years ago. This is our 9th annual edition, which opens next month at the Lincoln Center, Eleanor Bonin Monroe Film Center at the Lincoln Center, with 2 films and a reception following. The tickets are already on sale. Yes, somebody is warning me about my mic, but we're okay now. I guess everybody can hear me. So here is the information on the festival. So I'm going to tell you how to come and see us in person, as the festival is hybrid this year. We have a selection of films that are screened in person, and another selection, actually the same selection mostly, with the exception of 1 or 2 titles that cannot screen online. Everything else is going to be available after the online in-person section ends. So without further ado, let me go back and bring my filmmakers on. We always love to talk to our filmmakers because, as I always say, there is no festival without filmmakers. What can you do? I mean, I can go and do a tap dance number or something, but that is not a film festival. So here are all our wonderful filmmakers. And I think some of them have their mics mute, but that's okay. They will have them on when they speak. So let's just quickly take a round and introduce ourselves and tell something about your film, what it's about, without giving away too much, because we don't want spoilers. And then we're going to get into the questions section. And for audience members, if you have questions, you can put them in the comment section. I'm going to look out for them, and then you can address a particular filmmaker, or you can just ask a general question for everyone to answer. Lynn, so you're right there next to me, so you can.
Hi, okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me. My name is Lynn Santer. I'm the one in Australia who's up at 4:30 in the morning. My film, as you can see, is called Land of the Free in the Shadows, and it is really blowing the lid off some of the more nefarious and subversive secrets behind the big business of legally slaughtering endangered species for pride, pleasure, and profit.
Yeah, it's hard, but it's an important topic. And Guy?
Yeah, so my name's Guy Pigden. This is the 3rd film that I've made. My film is called Glimpses, and it explores the issue of multiple system atrophy, MSA, which is a neurological condition which affected my uncle, who had this condition, and the documentary sort of explores his experience living with the disease.
Juan, Carlos?
Hello. Yes, thank you for the invitation. My name is Juan Borrero. This is my second film. Her documentary is about women leaders in the world. We made this film because in our first film it was about the peace process in general in the world, and realized that there were no women leaders at the negotiating table in any peace process. So we decided to make a film about women leaders in peace. So we choose different women from different parts of the world, and they have leadership in education, environment, and peace building. And that's how you make peace, and that's the idea of the film.
Nice. Claudio?
Hi everyone, I'm Claudia Maurici. I'm from Italy, Trieste. This is my first film. The title is State of Rest, and I'm trying to show the world one of the biggest injustices that we can see in all Europe, and we are talking about the untold story of Western Sahara.
Yeah, the Western Sahara is a very little known issue, that not very many people talk about it. So we will have a chance to talk about that a little while later. And Wesley, our local New Yorker beside myself.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. My name is Wesley. I'm from New York, as Nora just said. I'm attending Harvard next year. I'm 17 years old. And my film is called Mute. It's about a world that costs, it's a world where words cost money, and a woman saves up for her first word in the hope of standing up to her abuser.
Right. And last but not least, Daizy, where are you right now?
I'm actually back in Sydney. So, Lynn, good morning to you.
You're an hour ahead, but good morning to you too.
Yes, it's nice and early in Sydney. We're cracking on to 5:45 a.m. But I will be taking off for Miami in a few days. So I'll be in your part of the world very soon, Nora. My film is called Enough, Lebanon's Darkest Hour. And it actually, I feel so honored to be in this group of people, because we're all doing something so important to highlight, as this festival does, such critical issues in the world. And I'm so grateful to be part of the festival. And my film focuses on Lebanon. And I'm sure people have heard about Lebanon the last few years with the explosion on August the 4th, which really brought it back into the headlines, sadly. But my film has been 5 years in the making, and it focuses on the corruption that's devastated and destroyed the country. And to this day, we're leading into elections on the 15th of May. So it's timely, because it's all about the people and what they can do.
I can't believe what an interesting collection we have here. And I shouldn't be saying that, because I put it together in a way. I'm not alone, of course. And it's a moment where I would like to take and thank all the festival team, because without a team, I first thank the filmmakers, because without filmmakers, we don't have a film festival. And also, without a team, we cannot put together a film festival. How can you put together a film festival when you don't have anybody who helps you? Because first of all, there is the selection process, and maybe this is a good opportunity for me to tell you something a little bit about that for future filmmakers who are watching or who are thinking of submitting to us. What we do is we go through the entire selection of the films that are submitted to us, and we classify them with a group of people who are viewing them into 3 different categories. They are yes, no, and maybe. Of course, the no's are because maybe it's not a socially relevant topic, or maybe it is, but the production values are so poor that it does not say what it's supposed to say, or maybe it just misses the point, or one thing or another makes us decide that we cannot show that film. We go into the yeses, and we focus and we start listening to the filmmakers to see what they have to tell us. And based on the stories we hear, we kind of put together the program of that year. We do not go in with preconceived ideas saying we want to talk about this topic or that topic. We let the filmmakers tell us what they want us to talk about. So that's basically how it happens. And personally, for me, it's a huge learning experience. It has been like I have the film festival with the help of the viewing committee and also my curatorial editorializing in the end. We have programmed to date without without counting this year's selection, which in itself is it's for somebody's mic is speaking in the background, so I don't know. Without taking into consideration this year's 64 films, so far in the 8 years, we have screened 550 films from 39 countries. And it has been an incredibly learning experience for me, incredibly important learning experience for me, because I have learned about topics that I didn't even know existed myself. Like, for example, what Lynn is going to talk about in a little while, about the legality of hunting for animals and for pleasure. And wow, who would have thought about that? You know, there are so many things that you have in our lives, we have in our lives in society on a daily basis, and we don't even pay attention. We don't know these things exist. And films like this open our eyes and give us an idea of what things are. So let me go back and ask my team here how the idea of the festival came about. So let's go again in a round and answer the question. I mean, not in the festival, sorry. I'm thinking of something else. How the idea of this film that you are making came about. It could be, a coincidence, something triggered it, or something that you've been thinking all your life, or whatever it is. Can you please share it with us? Lynn.
Okay, well, to attempt to make a very long story as brief as possible, this has been an over 20-year journey for me. In 2001, I was putting an event together on the Gold Coast of Australia as a fundraiser, awareness raiser for big cat conservation generally. And my very good friend Tippi Hedren, Alfred Hitchcock Star of the Birds, Melanie Griffith's mum, and so on, she was coming out from Los Angeles to front the event. And it was just going to be a big glitzy fundraiser that, probably a lot of us are quite familiar with. In the middle of organizing all of this, I received an email from somebody I'd never heard of in my life in Zimbabwe called Merrill Harrison. She was the chief inspector with the Zimbabwe SPCA, and she had fought incredibly hard to get an amendment to the Wildlife Act through there to ban the trophy hunting of endangered leopard with hounds that were trained with electric shock collars using live bait such as donkeys and goats to lure the leopard. So there were multiple levels of cruelty upon cruelty on cruelty with this particular kind of hunting. Incredibly, and against all odds, and this was at one of the most turbulent and violent times in that country's history during the farm invasions, which is another issue. She did get the amendment through with help of somebody in the Department of National Parks. She received the amendment with the words "Victory is ours" written across it. And within days, Safari Club International, which is the largest and most powerful politically and financially hunting group in the world, intervened, which is one of the things they do. They interfere with the policies of foreign sovereign nations to preserve their perceived right to legally, repeat, legally slaughter endangered animals for nothing other than pride, pleasure, and profit. Well, they didn't overturn the amendment, but what they did was they got a special permit through which is still in force today. It was only supposed to be for trial quotas for a short time. That's 20 years ago. It's still in force today. And Merrill was desperate, and she sent a call out to everyone involved in big cat conservation in the world. And here was I working from a spare bedroom at the end of the earth on the Gold Coast of Australia, and thought, what can I possibly do about an issue that's on the other side of the planet, fighting political might and financial muscle that I can't even imagine. But I thought, you know what, I'm not going to do what everybody else is going to do and just say it's too big, because every voice in this counts, and I'll come back to that perhaps in the next question. And I did what one would do if one lives in a James Bond film. I went out and found some ex-Special Forces commandos, started to plan a covert mission. That's covert, not COVID. And I said to Tippy, will you be in this? Because there's obviously all sorts of risks involved in this. She said, absolutely, try and stop me. And then I contacted Merrill, who equally had never heard of me. And I said, Merrill, I live in Australia. I'm planning a glitzy event with a Hollywood legend. I've hired some ex-Special Forces commandos to plan a covert mission. Would you come out to Australia at my expense to, you know, help us with the groundwork and get this underway? She must have thought I was on drugs. I thought I was on drugs. It was just bizarre. And that was the beginning of what has become a 20-year odyssey. And the obstacles that have been put in our path, death threats, physical death threats in Merrill's case. In fact, her twin brother was beaten to death. So yeah, these guys aren't messing around. And all sorts of other pressure we've been put under to not get the story out has been phenomenal, which is why it's taken 20 years, but now we're out.
This is very important because a lot of the, film is such a powerful medium. And that's basically why I believe that by talking about these matters, by unveiling these stories of social interest, these human interest stories, in this case, it's human and animal interest stories, we open people's eyes and allow them to understand that, wait a minute, it is not okay. And a lot of times, a lot of danger is involved. That we have another film, which is on another day's talk. It's about fisheries and how people disappear because they are investigating into what is supposed to be fished and what is not supposed to be fished. So a lot of times profiteering and profits interfere and create situations like that. Well, Guy, let us know how the idea, you already in a way touched upon it, but seeing something in front of you, you made use of the situation to tell the story to a wider audience. To be honest, it was not an easy film to watch because a perfectly able, great man deteriorate, but it's a very important story to tell. What was your feeling about that? Let me put the question a little differently from that. But for you.
Yeah, so the film in question is about my uncle and, you know, his experience with MSA, as I mentioned before. And I didn't know anything about MSA, although my grandfather had a different type of neurological condition, which had some similar symptoms. But I've never made a documentary before. My sort of background is actually feature films, and I've made 2 feature films prior to this one, narrative feature films, I should say. And so I'd never made a documentary before, but my uncle had actually made a short film, which was just a series of slides or pictures, which had his sort of thoughts underneath it, which tried to express his feeling and what he was going through at the time. This was in 2019. And I watched that little short and I was incredibly moved by it and his experience and what he was going through. And I thought, you know, he had some, like, my uncle was a very smart and articulate man. And he had some very interesting ideas around that experience. But I thought there was a big disconnect between, you know, my perception of living with an illness and what he was going through. And through that short, I sort of thought to myself, this story needs to be, you know, documented in a bigger way, in a way that maybe I can do, and in a way that he can't potentially. So I basically started communicating with him via email. We're close, but he lives in London, I live in New Zealand. And I said to him, look, you know, I saw your short. Do you have any interest in me coming over and trying to tell your story, your script, everything that you've written about this, but just expand it a little bit more and, you know, go into a bit more detail. I'll talk to, you know, your family. I'll film with you over this period of time. And he was incredibly receptive to that idea. And so, and I also have to acknowledge the Defeat MSA Alliance, who provided some funding to help me get over and help me film and make the film. But essentially, it was my way of, you know, a lot of the times, I don't know, we feel a little bit powerless sometimes, I think, as filmmakers, and, you know, maybe this is only relevant to me as a narrative filmmaker. I'm doing something to serve myself in a way. I'm serving my own story. I'm telling my own story, and I want to express that to the world. But this wasn't my story. This was my uncle's story. And this was something that I thought was very powerful, that people could maybe understand about living with a severe illness, that would help people have a little bit more empathy and gratitude for their own lives, but also for those not necessarily living with MSA specifically, but living with a severely limiting condition and what they experience and go through. And so I thought, if I could help tell my uncle's story, and I could do that for him, and I could help sort of raise awareness both for the condition, but also, you know, people's level of understanding when you hear, oh, someone's really sick with this or that. It's, you know, something that we'll all experience, whether it's through ourselves or through a loved one. I could, you know, bring them into that world a little bit and into his world, and we could all maybe feel a little bit differently about that. And so that was sort of my inspiration. It was primarily to help him in a way that, you know, my other films were about, you know, me. And so I think having that gift of being able to tell that story and having that opportunity was really quite amazing. But that short was what inspired me to sort of go over there and help try and tell more of a story, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a very important story because, like you say, the person who's going through it is unable to tell it themselves. So
Yes.
you're helping them in the way you are able, because you're not a nurse, you're not a doctor, and you're not his angelic wife who was so amazing until the end. So I don't want to give away the story.
Yeah.
By the way, this selection of films is going mostly, I think, if I'm not mistaken, online. Most of the films here. And earlier on, Lynn was asking, is there a schedule? There is no schedule for the online. The online films will be available throughout the week of the 20th to the 27th. As soon as the in-person section ends, on the same day, the films go online, live, and that's when people will be able to see the films that are only showing online, but also maybe a few of the in-person selections. It is possible to purchase tickets for a single film. You don't have to purchase an all-access pass to see the films online, even though it's more beneficial. But again, that is a choice. If you only have choices of particular films, that ticket will be available once the online program becomes live. And that will happen when all the films are uploaded. And that is something we have no control over, because it's the filmmakers who have to upload their films. So I hope this answers a question. So let's go to, I don't know what, I think it's Wesley next. How did the idea of your film come about?
Well, actually, I didn't really come up with the idea. It was interesting. I was just on Reddit one day, the website, and I was just looking through, like, it was some scripts that people have posted. And then there's this log line that stood out to me. It was just one sentence, right? In a world where words cost money, a woman saves up for her first word in the hope of standing up to her abuser. And it was so interesting to me because it ties in so many things. Like, not only is it just a unique sci-fi hook, but also the fact that, you know, you can use power to silence people. You know, it's kind of this censorship idea we've seen in a lot of countries. So that's kind of what I want to explore. And I asked him, you know, if I could option the script, and he was kind enough to lend it over. And yeah, so it didn't really come to me. It was more of I was telling someone else's story, and it was a great experience, I guess, to tell that story. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. By the way, I also announced that the films would be online, but at this moment, all the trailers that have been sent to us so far are on our YouTube channel. Of course, if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you know how to find us. And if you're not, you can go to our website. Here it is. I'll pass it on again. And with the website, you can go to SRFF 2022 in the menu. In the drop down, you'll find all the different categories listed, and whatever trailer we already have so far, they are there. So you can click and watch the trailers of the films to have an idea of what is in store for you. So Claudio, how did you get the idea of State of Rest, and what is your connection with Sahrawis?
So really, the first time I heard about that was watching television late in the night, where in Italy they used to screen investigative journalism or some kind of information, and those journalists, they were working on walls in general. And suddenly it came out this wall in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and really I could believe it. It was 2,700 kilometers long, a mine wall in the middle of the Sahara Desert. So I start to look for more information, and I find out that every year those people in the desert, Sahrawi people, they send their children to Europe and to looking for political affinity, looking for help, so to say. And really, I couldn't believe it that it was for real. So I decided that I want to go there and see for myself. So I spent 5 weeks in refugee camps in Tindouf, in outer south of Algeria, and everything started from there. Once you see that place, once you know these people, something changing for me, and everything started from there. I was also studying, so I write my university degree thesis on Western Sahara, and then I start to move. The movie is totally self-produced, so that's why it took so long. My first trip there was in January 2011, so it was more than 10 years ago. And then I've been working with refugees here in Trieste for 7-8 years now. So as you can imagine, this my job could be quite hard and stressful. So during all this time, really I start with the movie, then I stop, then I start again. So it was quite hard for me. I have no budget, so well, I want to try. I make a promise to these people. They offered me. They tell me their stories. They trust me. So I wanted really to finish this. Well, here I am, and that's still unbelievable to me to be here. And that's it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I really feel hats off to all of you and all the filmmakers who make these incredible films with no budget. It's not even a shoestring budget. It's like no budget. And what is more amazing is that you stick through it. Like it takes 10 years, it takes 12 years, it doesn't matter, because the burning urgency of the story that needs to be told makes you still want to go on and still want to tell the story, regardless of whether how many years have passed. And we have to really thank you for that, all of you, because it's not easy. I mean, we know, and any filmmaker would say, okay, forget about this. I'm going to go and make a commercial movie, or even make a commercial and gain some money. And what is this? What am I doing? But you are so, you have all my respect, because it's like you've made a choice, and thank you for very much for that choice. And because of that, we are learning so much about all these amazing subjects and these incredible people in the world. So, Juan Carlos.
Thank you. Yes, as I mentioned, her documentary came as an idea because of our first documentary, Call for Peace, that was about the peace process in Colombia. It was the conversion of different forces in the world, like more than 500 organizations, international organizations, United Nations, the European Union, and all these organizations were led by men. And our documentary was mostly about men talking about the peace process around the world through history. So we were looking for women leaders in peace in the forefront at the negotiation table, and there was just a few. So for that peace process, that was the documentary, basically mostly men. And then we said, okay, we have to do something about women leaders. I think we own that to the women leadership that is present, but is not that known, and it's about a generation of women that never had a role model for leadership. So they have to create their own path and their own template of leadership, and they have like a quite big impact in their community and in the world, in environment, peacemaking, and education, which I believe are the most important parts or components in peace.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach, because I remember your film. I think it was the opening film of our festival a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and even won an award, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, best documentary. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was very powerful. But like you say, most of these films that talk about big initiatives in the world and world leaders, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, they're all men. You know, you look at the picture and it's like all these black suits that are standing together like penguins. And every now and then you'd have a token woman in a red dress in the middle of it, but you don't hear their story. You just see the token picture, but not the story. So what you did was very important. So, and Daizy, how did you get this idea of sitting all the way away in Sydney and Lebanon? They're not really next door.
No, but my background, obviously, I was born in Lebanon. My heritage is Lebanese, and I made a film 25 years ago. My first documentary was on Lebanon. My background professional background is journalism, and I worked in the Middle East. I was a reporter for the Australian newspaper and for Channel 4 in London. So I had done a lot of work in the Middle East. And my first film back in the 90s was on Lebanon coming out of the war. It was called Lebanon in Prison Splendor, with the late, great Omar Sharif as my co-presenter. He was amazing. But this film, I always knew I would come back to Lebanon's story because I knew that it would have to evolve after the war. And I was waiting for the time to, pass, because stories need time to evolve. And I also wasn't sure what the story was going to be. And honestly, when the sort of calling came, was 2016. I was going through a very difficult time in my life personally, and it was the last thing I needed to do was go and make this film. But there was this calling to go, and I didn't know what the story was, but I assumed what I felt I was going to tell was the revival, the renaissance of Lebanon. I thought that after 20 years after the civil war had ended, 25 years, and I'd been back and forth to Lebanon, and I'd seen it evolve, and I'd seen the facade change, and Beirut had blossomed. And if you've been to Lebanon, Beirut is a stunning city along the Mediterranean coastline, as no doubt all of you know. And I had witnessed that change, and I honestly thought the story was the renaissance of Lebanon after the tragic 15-year civil war. But as I spent the first film shoot in 2017, I spent like 5-6 weeks in Lebanon, traveling around the country, getting the story from the people, talking to some of the politicians, interviewing people. After the 5 weeks, I was meeting with one man who sat across from me and looked me straight down the barrel into my eyes, and very distinguished gentleman, and said to me, are you going to tell the world the true story of what's happening to Lebanon? And it was so compelling that even when I say it today, I get very emotional, because I still wanted to believe in the renaissance and the revival of Lebanon, but I had to set that aside, that preconditioned idea, and really listen to the people. And when I came home and reviewed all the footage, and I did listen again, I knew that I heard the screams of the people through the stories. You know, they were screaming at me or pleading with me to tell the truth. And so I had always scheduled to go back to do a second shoot. And so that really upped the ante. I was making a small film on a small budget. And then when I reviewed everything, it transformed the film into something much larger. And we got, applied for funding, took a crew, went back all guns blazing into Lebanon in 2018 to really cut through the crap, get to the heart of the problem, confront the politicians on the issue of corruption and the desecration of society, the poverty which had skyrocketed, from 20% to 55% by then, and now it's at 72 to 80% of the entire nation. It's critical. And that really forced me to very much confront those politicians. But in the story, as you watch the film, I'm actually just telling the people's story. I'm giving their voice a platform to be shared around the world, and that's what we're all doing, really, is bringing to light a tragic situation. Yeah.
It's shining the spotlight on something that's going on. It's very interesting that your film about Lebanon started like so long ago. It has nothing to do with the explosion, only the explosion suddenly makes it even more timely and more important to talk about. We have two other Lebanese films in the selection, and they are screening in person. One of them is an animation short, and it's the two Lebanese films are screening on Friday evening at 9 o'clock on the 18th of March. The first one is an animation short about the little girl who's having a birthday, and just as she's about to blow the candles, the explosion happens. And then we see in animation what that means, because sometimes the gory facts is better to show as an animation, because you get the idea without the horn of the violence being thrown at you. Yes. And the second one is a very powerful documentary called Beirut the Aftermath. It's about, again, somebody like yourself who was not living in Lebanon and happened to be there just before the explosion, but she goes back for a reason that is explained in the film. She just goes back just before the explosion happens. And then when that happens, she decides to return and tell the story. And it's
Wow.
again the story of the people, not the sensation of what happened and so on and so forth, but how is all this, how is the corruption affecting people, and how much more do they have to suffer through all this, and who is going to tell the story, not only tell the story, do something about it. And the same goes with Fadia's film, Beirut, The Aftermath, in which she is making the people tell their own stories. So I think we did this round. Did I leave out anybody? I hope I haven't. So let me also say,
Wesley.
yeah.
I think we are missing Wesley.
No, I think Wesley.
No, yeah, I spoke, I think.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I failed to put everybody on the solo, but I will in the next round. So what I also want to say is that this conversation is, of course, live right now, but it will be on our YouTube channel. So please forward it to your friends and whoever was not able to join in, especially the Sydney people and the Australia, Lynn and Daizy, because it's so early. You can't tell your friends, come and watch me at 4:30 a.m. But you can tell them to come in and take a look later once it is on the YouTube channel. And same thing goes with everybody else. So my next question for the whole group is, what do you expect to get out of screening at Socially Relevant Film Festival? And how did you find out? And you can answer in any way you want.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn. Well, I wanted to get this story out to geographically as many parts of the world as I could. So I selected what I hoped were the best festivals around the world. And we have now won from Russia to, Japan, Berlin, everywhere but Australia, really. We have not screened in New York. And obviously there are a lot of film festivals in New York. So I became a little bamboozled. But when I saw Socially Relevant, I thought, well, that's interesting, because that is exactly what this is. And none of the other film festivals that I had entered were specifically socially relevant. So I'm hoping that I'm addressing an audience in New York who care. But moreover, people just don't think, they think they're helpless because it's such a massive issue. It's been going on for so long. As I mentioned before, the political muscle and financial weight behind it are gargantuan. I mean, we mentioned more than once in the film, it's a David and Goliath battle. But not to give too much away, we need to remember something. David won. We can win. We are winning. The ocean is not a vast body of water. It is made up of individual drops. We are all those individual drops. We now have legislation on the table in the United Kingdom, in South Africa, and even in parts of the United States. So it is about keeping the pressure on, and that is about raising awareness. And as I mentioned to you prior to going live, Nora, we've got a couple of initiatives going on right now, not on our main movie site, but on our Call to Arms site, which is the Humanitarian Hall of Shame. And they're free. And one of them is a competition, there it is, for people to submit a story about animal love. And this is to demonstrate how animals do have feelings. I mean, increasingly around the world, we are seeing legislation passed that recognizes the sentience of non-human animals. But I want to see as many stories as possible. And if we get enough, I might even publish an anthology book of them all. But this being Valentine's month, I thought it was a good month to run something for
Express the
Stories
love.
of Love.
Yeah.
And as Priscilla Presley, who's a dear friend of mine and an executive producer on the project and in the film, is obviously associated with it all, the prize for the most moving story is a package of Elvis Presley memorabilia, including a guitar-shaped musical box that plays Love Me Tender. So that seemed appropriate. So we'd love to see stories, please, at that link, as many as you can, and the most moving story, and it's free, will win that wonderful prize.
Yeah.
And also, if you go to that link, you'll find something that says add your voice. Now, this is a page, add your voice to our raw. And again, it's free. And all we're asking of people is please upload a photograph of yourself to show that you support our campaign around the world to ban the legal trophy hunting of endangered species for nothing other than pride, pleasure, and profit. It takes a minute and it costs nothing, and every voice counts.
Yeah.
So this is what we're hoping to reach people, and please add your voice to our roar.
So next we go to Guy, and I'm just going to ask you if you want to combine the next question with your idea of why you are at the Socially Relevant and what do you expect. The next question being, what is your next project? If you want to just talk about both at the same time, it's fine, because I don't want us to run out of time and then people won't be able to come to the last question. So how about Guy telling us what do you expect from being here?
Yeah, so for me, again, I'll be completely honest, my lack of experience in the documentary world means that, I didn't really have that many expectations when I finished my documentary, because I've never made a documentary before, so I don't understand. It's a lot. It feels a little bit different to making a narrative feature, which I'm kind of very familiar with, and so again, I think probably the same as all the filmmakers here. I want to share my uncle's story, and I want to share and raise awareness for MSA, and help those who have it, maybe through seeing the story, sort of understand it better. And also, as you mentioned, Nora, it is like kind of a tough film to watch, and it can be hard for people to watch sometimes. But I think that obviously films should be confronting and can be difficult, and that's okay. And so I guess for me, it's a great honor to be here. It's a great honor to be considered socially relevant with this story that I'm sharing. And I think it's really fantastic for my uncle, who's the subject of the documentary, that we experience this profile, we get to be in this festival, and we get to tell his story, because at the end of the day, I'm sure one of his reasons for wanting to tell it was to leave something of a legacy, for people to experience a little window, a glimpse, obviously, if you will, into his life. And so for me, I just hope that people get to see it, they take the time to watch it, and it's a great honor to be part of this festival and give those people an opportunity. And I know that I've got, I'm sure a lot of people through the Defeat MSA Alliance who helped me complete the film, that will now be able to see this story as it's featured here on the platform. So I'm sort of very excited about all of that, and greatly appreciate being selected. And in terms of my next project, I don't actually have a next project. I'm sort of toying with a few different ideas, but I've got no specific thing in the works. There is a few scripts in different various stages of developments and pitches and all that sort of thing. But, this is one of the times where normally I have 3 or something projects lined up. I'm working on this, I'm working on that. This time, not really. So, I'm just focused on getting this story out in the world and hoping people see and enjoy it and take something from it. So,
great.
Yeah.
also on this occasion, let me say that we also have a script writing competition, and maybe a script that you've written comes our way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's also mutually inspirational. When I watch these films, I'm learning so much, and I want to make my own movies. Actually, incidentally, just to mention, I had a movie last year in our festival, which is now doing the festival rounds in its own right, and it won me even an award, best female director in a short film. So I'm very proud of that. And
Fantastic.
so it's all we're a group. Like it's like everybody feeds off of the others. So maybe by watching the films in the selection, you'll get an idea of what your next project is about. So,
I hope so.
Wesley?
Yeah, I suppose it's the same kind of, I hope to get this story around, especially to an audience that really cares about this kind of issues, and Socially Relevant Film Festival just seemed like something that really was a good home for this. So it was a no-brainer for me to submit. In terms of my next project, I'm working on another proof of concept short that is being produced by Scott A. Hironi, who actually, his film's Lalic and Green, they were featured in Tribeca and Sundance. So that's really exciting, and hopefully, we'll get some more stuff going over there.
That is nice to hear. So Juan Carlos, tell us what you feel like, think, or expect, or you've already been with us before, but this is the second round.
Yeah, I think this festival fits the kind of films I want to make. I think it's a good fit for what I do. Last time was pre-COVID, so we were about to screen in the Lincoln Center, and it was unfortunately it was canceled because of COVID. I'm glad to be back, at least online, to still share my work with as many people as I can. And I think it's good to have like-minded filmmakers around you with similar ideas, similar sensitivities. That's important. My next film, I'm working now in different films. I'm a cameraman DP, but my next own project is going to be about peace spaces in war, like sports create some spaces for peace in different parts of the world, like the little kids that play soccer in the middle of the war, and that kind of things is interesting for me. So that's going to be my next.
Nice. So the positions have changed. So we go to Daizy first, and then Claudio next.
So it's finding, like Lynn, I was also attracted to Socially Relevant Film Festival because of the purpose of the festival. My film's been in quite a few festivals too, but all of them had to have a relevance. I think that is the most important thing, because obviously there's many film festivals in the world, but there are only those that they're really, you have to be careful as a filmmaker to select those festivals that are appropriate to your film and your message, because obviously we want to reach as wide an audience as possible. So we can go to those other festivals, but really we want people who are interested in changing the world. And I think we as filmmakers really want to change the world by bringing stories that need to be shared and the spotlight put on them, and hopefully reach people who are interested in changing the world too. So Socially Relevant Film Festival for me was that kind of festival, and why I'm honored to be involved and selected and participating in it, because I believe the audience are people who will take note of my story and take note of our stories, because there's so much that we can do, like you said, Nora, by making the film and bringing it to the world's attention. But then it's really up to the viewers, and we're hoping that audiences around the world really are impacted by the stories we're bringing to them. Such a diversity here today, and I'm sure there's many more diverse topics that the festival's broadcasting to the fans and followers. But that is, for me, the most important thing, that people that are interested, it gets in front of people who are interested and want to know these topics.
Absolutely. I mean, there are two points of views about that, in the sense that should we preach to the people who already are aware of these things, or should we go and grab people who don't know anything about them? But I think focusing on the people who are inclined to already think in these terms might be a good way to start. So, and your point is very important. Maybe we should talk about that a little bit more if there are filmmakers who will be listening or seeing this recording later on. It's that you have to pick and choose. Sometimes me as a filmmaker, I get all these emails from film festivals who are soliciting. Obviously, we don't. For one thing, let me say that we don't go out solicit left, right, and center. We are there. People know about us, and we are very selective as to which filmmakers we pick, because we are focused on social issues. And I see in those solicitations film festivals that have nothing to do with the topic of my film, like the horror film festival or something like that. And my film is about migrant women. And I'm like, it's not such a horrifying story, migrant women, you know? And I felt like, okay, they are just indiscriminately sending because they want submissions. We don't do that. By the same tokens, filmmakers, don't waste your money. Don't just go around submitting to left, right, and center. Be very selective. So it's very, very important to know that. And Claudio, last but not least, so tell us about your expectations and your next project.
So really, it's unbelievable to me to be here with you. That's
Your mic is a little weak. Can you approach a
yeah,
little?
I was saying that still it's really unbelievable to me to be here. Really, uh, what I want to share this story because really it's almost nobody about that. Nobody knows, and it's something a lot bigger than you can imagine. And there's something very, very, very dangerous happening there. They spent 16 years shooting, and then 29 years waiting for peace. So it was a ceasefire state for almost 30 years. And now they are back to war. So what is happening now is that, war is we can see war all around Europe. It's very close. And we never stop to think what we are doing to to make war, and we as a European people, we are doing very, very bad things, and we are joining wars. And this is one of the, so to say, the black holes that we have in Europe. Well, Lebanon, it's another one, or Libya. As I told you, I'm lucky to say I never see war with my own eyes, but I have been working and having a relationship with hundreds of people escaping from war here in my city, and this is something very dangerous. So I would like to other people to find out about this war, this story, and do something for these people. That was I promised to those people to Sahrawi people in refugee camps. And this festival, when I was looking for different places uh, to to try to share my movie. This is my first movie, so I have no experience. So when I found this festival, I thought, okay, maybe I have a good chance here. But I was thinking, hey, that's New York City. It's too far from me, but well, I will try. But apparently, it
That's
works.
good. Your film was noticed because also Sahrawis are indigenous people. And one of the important topics that came up in this year's selection is the stories of indigenous people. And by indigenous people, we mean First Nations people in Canada. We mean the Native Americans in the United States. We mean the people of Artsakh in Caucasus, in Armenia, and all that. And of course, the Sahrawis. All these are indigenous people who are not asking for anything but the right to peacefully exist on their ancestral lands. That's
For
and
Western Sahara is worse than this. I mean, they have it's very clear legally. Everything is very clear. They have all the rights, and so United Nations. Have, I don't know how many resolutions they make. Maybe I don't know hundreds of them. But the matter is that still they don't have the opportunity
to do
to
anything. Yeah.
to live as we do. This is not fair.
Well, we're coming to the end of our time. In fact, we're a little bit over, but it doesn't matter because, you know, this is YouTube. People can log in, log out as they wish. We have two comments that I would like to read. Michael Pone said, "Go, Wesley. You have somebody who's encouraging you. So there you go." And another Michael. Wow, what a coincidence. Two Michael comments. "Congratulations to all and for keeping attention on such significant events as the Beirut explosion, from which many lessons are yet to be drawn, yet too easily fade from international awareness." Yes, by talking about things, you know, sensationalism happens and then we forget. But Daizy's film brings us back to where the whole thing has started, how that has led to this moment, probably. And each and every film has its own merit, and we are lucky, we are honored to have you all with the festival. So please tell your friends to log in when the live program. There is a link already. When you click on the link of the Spark Fest live on the website, it will take you to the page. But on the page, you will not see the films because the films are not uploaded. I mean, many of them are uploaded, but until every last film is uploaded, we cannot make it go live. So you will see the skeleton of the streaming platform, but not the actual films. Thank you all very much for joining in on a Saturday morning. Most is morning and some of you evening. So
thank you, Nora.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely to meet you all. Congratulations to you all.
Broadcast, and we can talk.